There are over 100 mountains on Earth above 7,000 meters. Most have been climbed, yet a small number never have, and the reasons have nothing to do with difficulty or altitude. So what stops a peak from ever being reached in the modern era of mountaineering? One is banned by a government that treats its peaks as sacred and refuses every climbing application. One has been attempted only once, by a team that turned back without even reaching the upper part of the route, and no one has tried since. One sits in plain sight of every K2 expedition and has defeated every team that has attempted it. One rises to a near-perfect triangular point with ridgelines so exposed and unstable that no route up it has ever been worked out. And one is so closed off by political restrictions that no foreign expedition has ever been allowed near it, not once, in all of recorded mountaineering history. On the disputed border between Bhutan and Tibet, a mountain called Tongshan rises to 7,207 meters. It is one of the highest unclimbed peaks on Earth, and in the entire recorded history of mountaineering, no serious expedition has ever set up a base camp at its foot. Not one. Tongshan sits in the eastern Himalayas, where poor maps, frequent cloud cover, and steep terrain make even getting close a serious problem. The first clear photographs of the peak were taken in the year 2000. One climbing application has ever been submitted. It was not followed up with an actual attempt. From the Bhutanese side, the mountain is legally off-limits. Bhutan has banned all climbing above 6,000 meters since 1994. The mountains are considered sacred, the homes of protective spirits, and the government has no intention of changing this. The ban is not under review. It is policy. From the Tibetan side, access is technically possible, but involves getting permits from Chinese authorities in one of the most remote and poorly mapped parts of the entire Himalayan range. The approach would take weeks. The snow leopard moves through the high valleys here, and the blue sheep graze the lower ridges. Both have far easier access to this mountain than any human expedition has ever managed. From a mountain that nobody has ever tried, we cross deeper into Tibet, to a peak that has been attempted once and turned back every team that made the effort. In northern Tibet, in a section of the Himalayas that receives almost no attention from the climbing world, stands Lapche Khang 2. At 7,250 meters, it is one of the highest unclimbed peaks that can legally be attempted. It has been attempted once, by a Polish team, which did not get close to the summit. Getting a climbing permit for peaks in this part of Tibet means dealing with Chinese authorities in a region that is poorly mapped and rarely visited. Access is routinely delayed or refused. The approach involves days of travel through terrain with no roads, no resupply points, and no infrastructure. When the Polish team finally reached the area, they found a mountain that was steep, heavily covered in ice, and technically serious at every stage. They turned back without reaching the upper part of the route. No team has returned since. One odd fact about Lapche Khang 2 is, the nearby peak Lapche Khang 1, just a few meters lower, was successfully climbed years ago. The two summits are part of the same mountain group and sit right next to each other. One has been reached, the other has not. The difference is not altitude. It is the angle of the approach, the quality of the ice, and the route that nobody has yet worked out. The Himalayan snowcock crosses these ridges on its seasonal movements, passing over terrain that no climbing team has yet managed to use. From a peak lost inside Tibet's permit system, we cross to the Karakoram, to a mountain that sits right beside the famous K2, in plain sight, and that nobody has ever reached. 5 kilometers west of K2, the second highest mountain on Earth, there is a peak that almost no one has heard of. Climbers walk past it on the approach to K2 base camp. They can see it clearly from the Baltoro Glacier. Some of the most experienced high-altitude mountaineers in the world have passed within a few kilometers of it, and nobody has ever stood on top of it. Sumari 1 rises to 7,286 meters in the Baltoro Mustak section of the Karakoram in Pakistan. It is also known as Savoya Kangri, named by Italian explorers in the early 20th century after the House of Savoy. The mountain sits directly beside the most heavily used high-altitude climbing corridor in the world. Base camps, supply lines, and experienced teams are all nearby. The Pakistan permit system for this area is straightforward compared to Tibet or restricted border zones. None of this has helped. The reason is the route. The faces of Suma Re 1 are consistently loaded with deep, unstable snow that does not consolidate. A Scottish team reached 7,000 meters in 1998 before retreating in deteriorating conditions. A British team tried 3 separate times in 2006 and failed on every attempt. The upper section of the mountain, a long, exposed ridge above 7,000 meters, has never been crossed. The Karakoram ibex moves across the lower slopes below, navigating terrain that has turned back every serious climbing team. Suma Re 1 is not banned. It is not in a restricted zone. It sits next to the most famous climbing destination in Pakistan, in plain sight, and remains completely untouched. From a mountain that defeats climbers with unstable snow, we stay in the Karakoram, to a different kind of technical problem entirely. In the Karakoram Mountains of Pakistan, one peak in the Kunyang Chish Massif has never been climbed. The main summit was first reached in 1971. The east summit was climbed in 2013, but the west summit, at 7,350 meters, has never been touched. The west summit is known to climbers as Pyramid Peak, which describes it accurately. It rises to a sharp, near-perfect triangular point, with ridgelines on all sides that are heavily corniced and exposed. The approaches to the summit involve steep climbing on unstable snow and ice at altitude, with no safe anchor points along the final ridge. The weather in this part of the Karakoram builds quickly and without much warning. A team that gets caught high on the face in worsening conditions has very few options. The Massif has seen multiple deaths across its various attempts on different routes. Avalanches have ended expeditions before they reach serious altitude. The West Summit, specifically, has seen no serious attempt in years. It is not banned. It is not in a war zone. There is no permit problem. The mountain simply waits, on a ridge that offers nothing to hold on to on the way up, while more famous peaks nearby get all the attention. From a mountain that defeats climbers through pure technical difficulty, we end in Tibet, with a peak that barely anyone has heard of, and that no one has ever been allowed to try. In a remote section of Tibet near the border with Bhutan, Sanglung rises to 7,095 meters. It is the lowest mountain on this list. It is also, in some ways, the most inaccessible. The Chinese government has closed the surrounding region to foreign expeditions entirely. No international mountaineering team has ever received a permit to approach it. It sits in a part of Tibet where even basic information about the mountain, reliable photographs, accurate maps, any route description at all, is nearly impossible to obtain. The mountain is not mysterious because it has defeated climbers. It is mysterious because climbers have never been allowed close enough to find out if they could be defeated. What is known is this. Sanglung is part of a cluster of high peaks near the Bhutan border in eastern Tibet that includes other unclimbed summits. The region is geopolitically sensitive. The border between China and Bhutan in this area is itself disputed, which means that any expedition approaching from either side runs into immediate access problems. From Bhutan, the ban on high-altitude climbing applies. From Tibet, the Chinese permit system applies, and in this specific region, permits have simply not been issued. The mountain sits inside a landscape that the Himalayan snowcock and the bar-headed goose cross freely on their seasonal migrations. Birds that fly over 7,000-meter passes without any permit, any bureaucracy, or any discussion. Sanglung remains where it has always been. High, closed, and entirely indifferent to the ambitions of the people who have never been allowed to get close enough to even begin.